The space station Aurelion Prime floated silently above a bright blue gas giant. Ships from hundreds of alien species came and went, their lights flickering like stars. It was the biggest trade hub in the Orion Arm, and that day, something truly strange was about to happen. In the middle of the bustling market section, a human stall stood between glowing jelly merchants and robotic spice dealers. The stall had a sign written in glowing letters: Earth Delicacies, Real Taste, Real Heart. Behind the counter stood Captain Ray Holden, a tall man with brown hair, a friendly smile, and an apron that said Baker of Worlds. He wasn't a soldier or a scientist like most humans in space. He was just a baker, but his breads had become legends across 3 systems. Ray had left Earth 5 years ago to share what he believed was humanity's greatest invention: good food made with love. As usual, aliens passed by his stall, curious and cautious. The smell of baked bread drifted through the metallic air. It was warm, comforting, and so different from the cold nutrient cubes most aliens ate. Today, however, Ray noticed someone new walking toward him. She was tall, almost 6.5 feet, her skin a deep silver blue, eyes glowing faintly like liquid light. Her hair looked like strands of starlight itself. Her clothes were elegant and black armor lined with gold. The air around her shimmered slightly as if she carried energy wherever she went. People whispered as she passed. "That's Commander Zahara of the Clerians," someone said. "She commands half the fleet of the Eastern Quadrant," another added. Zahara stopped in front of Ray's stall, crossing her arms. "Human," she said, her voice calm but powerful. "Is this the source of the unusual scent?" Ray smiled. "If you mean the smell of baked bread, yes, Commander. Fresh from the oven." She tilted her head, confused. "Bread? A biological mass made of flour and heat?" "That's right," Ray replied cheerfully. "We call it baguette. Long, crispy, and warm. Best eaten fresh." Zahara's eyes narrowed slightly. "Long, you say? How long exactly?" Ray chuckled and held one up. 13 inches. There was a pause. Zahara blinked, looking at the golden brown loaf as if it were some kind of alien weapon. Around them, a few traders stopped to watch. Then she spoke, her tone sharp, curious, but not unkind. "You have it? 13-inch? She leaned closer, her silver eyes fixed on the bread. "Let me taste this. Baguette." A wave of laughter moved through the small crowd, but Ray kept his composure. "Of course, Commander. One sample coming right up." He sliced a piece off, steam rising gently from the crust. He handed it to her carefully. Zahara sniffed it first. Her people were known for being careful with new food. "It smells strange," she admitted. "Sweet, warm, almost like the air after a solar storm." "Go ahead," Ray encouraged. "Taste tells you more than smell ever could." For a second, Zahara hesitated. Then she bit into it. The crowd waited, and then her expression changed completely. The proud, serious commander's eyes widened. The tension in her shoulders melted. She closed her eyes slowly, as if tasting something beyond flavor, something emotional. "This," she whispered softly, "this is impossible." Ray smiled knowingly. "Good, huh?" "It's..." She struggled for words, unused to emotion. "It's alive. It feels like warmth, like sunlight and comfort." Ray nodded. "That's what home tastes like." "That's Earth," the crowd murmured. A jelly being bought 3 loaves. A reptilian trader asked for 10. Suddenly, Ray's small stall became the center of attention. But Zahara wasn't done. She looked at the baguette again, turning it in her hands like a treasure. "You humans create this with your hands? No nanoforge, no quantum printer?" "Nope," Ray said proudly. "Just flour, water, salt, and time. Simple things. But when we mix them with patience, it becomes something special." Zahara frowned thoughtfully. "Your species spends effort on something so small." "Small things matter," Ray said softly. "Sometimes they change worlds." She studied him quietly. In her culture, strength and power were everything. Food was only fuel. Yet this human with his simple bread had made her feel something she couldn't explain. Then she straightened up again. "Your creation intrigues me, human. I wish to know more about it." Ray grinned. "You're welcome to. I've got rolls, pastries, and cookies too. But the baguette is my pride." She took another bite, slower this time. The metallic scent of the station faded from her senses, replaced by something warm and human. The feeling unsettled her and fascinated her. "You may not realize it, Captain Holden," she said finally, "but you might have started an interstellar addiction." Ray laughed. If it's for good bread, I can live with that. He looked at her more closely now. Despite her commanding presence, she seemed lonely, the kind of loneliness that came from a life spent in duty, far from warmth or laughter. He didn't say anything, but Zahara noticed the look. You are curious, human, she said. Do you always study people like this? Only when they surprise me, he replied. And you, Commander, just ate bread like it was a miracle. She tilted her head, considering his words. Perhaps it was. Before she could say more, her communicator beeped. A metallic voice came through. Commander Zahara, the council is waiting. You are due in Chamber 7. She sighed and looked at Ray. Duty calls. Of course, he said kindly, but take this one for the road. He handed her a fresh baguette wrapped in soft paper. Zahara hesitated again, then accepted it, holding it almost carefully, like a rare artifact. You have earned my attention, human baker, she said quietly, perhaps more than you realize. Then she walked away, her armor glinting under the lights, the baguette still in her hand. The crowd slowly dispersed, but Ray leaned back against his counter with a grin. He didn't fully understand what had just happened, but he could feel it. Something big had started. For the first time, a Clerian commander had smiled over something made by human hands. And maybe, just maybe, that smile could bridge two worlds. As the hum of ships filled the air again, Ray whispered to himself, Guess I just fed the galaxy's most powerful woman a piece of home. 3 days had passed since the day Commander Zahara tasted the human baguette, and since then the story had spread across the entire Aurelian Prime Station like wildfire. Have you heard? The Clerian commander smiled. They say a human fed her something called baguette? No, you fool, it's baguette. Ray's stall had become a small legend. Aliens from every corner came just to try the bread that disarmed a commander. He was baking from morning to midnight, barely keeping up with the demand, yet something in him kept wondering if he would ever see Zahara again. Then, one quiet morning while he was kneading dough, a shadow fell over his stall. Captain Holden, said a calm, familiar voice. Ray looked up on, and there she was again. Commander Zahara stood there in her dark armor, but this time she wasn't alone. 2 of her guards flanked her, their faces hidden behind energy masks. Ray smiled. Commander! Back for another taste test. Her lips curved slightly, a hint of amusement. Perhaps. But today I have come for more than food. The nearby traders went silent. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Zahara continued. The High Council of Cleria has requested your presence aboard our flagship Eclipsera. You are invited to demonstrate the process by which your species creates this bread of emotion. Ray blinked. You mean you want me to bake for your government? That is correct, she said. They believe your creation may have psychological benefits for our people. Ray scratched the back of his neck. Well, that's new. I never thought I'd get hired by aliens for a cooking show. Zahara tilted her head. You accept? He grinned. I've never turned down free travel and good company. A moment later, the guard stepped aside as Zahara gestured toward a sleek shuttle waiting by the docking bay. Then come, human baker. Let us show you our world. The journey. The shuttle lifted smoothly, leaving Aurelian Prime behind. Ray sat near the window, watching the glowing trails of ships passing through the vastness of space. Beside him, Zahara remained silent, studying a holographic pad. But Ray noticed her gaze drifting toward him now and then. Finally, he decided to speak. So, Commander, how does a simple piece of bread cause such a stir among the Clerians? Zahara turned off the hologram and faced him. Our kind does not often experience comfort. We are warriors. Efficiency and logic are our foundations. Your food, however, created something strange among those who tasted it. Strange how? They smiled, she said simply. Uncontrolled emotional response. Some even said they felt happy. Ray chuckled. That's the magic of carbs. She frowned slightly. Magic? I thought you humans did not believe in such forces. He smiled. It's just a figure of speech. I mean, it's something simple that makes life feel better. Like warmth on a cold day. Zahara looked at him thoughtfully. You speak as if food holds emotion. It does, Ray said. Back on Earth, food isn't just fuel. It's family, memory, comfort. When we share food, we share a little piece of who we are. For a moment, Zahara was silent. Then in a softer voice, she said, Perhaps that is why your kind is so difficult to understand. You find meaning in everything and even in bread. Ray shrugged with a grin. That's what makes us human. The flagship Eclipsera. When the shuttle arrived, Ray stared in awe. The Eclipsera wasn't just a ship, it was a city in space. Its silver hull stretched for miles, glowing faintly with blue light. Massive towers rose from its surface, connected by shining bridges. Inside, everything gleamed: cold metal, white light, and silent corridors. Every Clerian they passed turned their heads to look at Ray, whispering quietly. Humans were rare guests aboard such a vessel. Finally, Zahara led him into a large room filled with strange devices: glowing tables, plasma containers, and an empty cooking platform set up in the center. This, she said, is our research hall. You will conduct your demonstration here. Ray looked around. Got an oven? Zahara blinked. An oven? You know, Ray said, miming the motion of opening a door. A hot box that bakes the bread. She pressed a button on the wall and a mechanical arm descended, transforming into a glowing cylinder. Thermoconversion chamber. Will this suffice? Ray chuckled. Sure, as long as it gets hot and doesn't explode. Zahara raised an eyebrow. Explode? Just kidding, he said quickly. The demonstration soon, dozens of Clerian officers gathered around, including members of the High Council. Ray began his work mixing flour, water, salt, and yeast. The aliens watched silently, confused by the simplicity of it all. One counselor whispered, He is simply stirring. Patience, Zahara said quietly, observing closely. There is more to it. As Ray kneaded the dough, he spoke gently as if teaching children. You see, this isn't just about ingredients. You have to feel it. The dough tells you when it's ready. He pressed the soft dough between his fingers, folding it carefully. The Clerians stared. They were used to machines doing all labor. Watching a human use his hands felt almost ancient, primitive, and yet oddly beautiful. When the dough was ready, Ray placed it into the heating chamber. Warm light filled the room. The smell began to spread. Slow and soft at first, then stronger, richer, and warmer. The air changed. Clerians looked around, shifting uncomfortably. They felt something unusual, a sensation of calm, of memory, of peace. One whispered, What is this? Warmth, another murmured, I feel lighter. Zahara, too, stood still, eyes closed, breathing in the aroma. It was the same feeling she'd experienced before, that strange, impossible comfort. Then the timer beeped. Ray pulled the golden baguette from the chamber. Here it is, he said proudly, fresh and alive. The aliens leaned forward. Zahara took the first piece again. She bit into it slower this time, letting the taste unfold. Around her, the council members followed. And then it happened again. That quiet, shared stillness. Even the stern council leader closed his eyes. One Clerian softly said, I remember my hatch day. The warmth of my nest. Another whispered, I feel like I belong. Zahara looked at Ray, eyes soft with something almost like awe. You have done it again, human. You've made warriors feel peace, Ray smiled. That's the power of good bread. A private moment later, after the hall had emptied, Zahara approached Ray. The others were gone, but the smell of bread still lingered in the air. You have changed something today, she said quietly. My people have not smiled in centuries. Not like that, Ray shrugged lightly. Guess I just reminded them that life can taste good sometimes. She looked at him for a long moment. You are not like other humans I have met. You do not seek power or wealth, only warmth. That's what we do best, Ray said softly. We build warmth in cold places. Zahara's expression softened. Perhaps the galaxy needs more of your kind, Ray chuckled. Maybe it just needs more baguettes. That made her laugh, a real light laugh that startled even her. Perhaps, she agreed, then she grew thoughtful. Captain Holden, would you consider staying aboard the Eclipsera for a while? Teach us your craft. Teach us what makes your people so human, Ray hesitated. You mean me? On a warship? Not as a soldier, she said. As a teacher, he smiled slowly. Well, Commander, how could I refuse that? Zahara nodded once, her silver eyes reflecting the soft light of the bread still glowing faintly in its dish. For the first time in Clerian history, something other than logic had touched their hearts, and it had started with one human, and a 13-inch baguette. Weeks passed since Captain Ray Holden had first stepped aboard the Clerian flagship Eclipsera. What started as a simple demonstration had evolved into a full mission, teaching the Clerians the human art of baking. At first, the crew had been skeptical. Warriors, commanders, and engineers were used to discipline, technology, and strict logic. But Ray had a secret weapon: human warmth, patience, and humor. Every morning, the massive kitchen hall of the Eclipse era filled with the smell of rising dough, roasting bread, and sweet pastries. Warriors, council members, and even officers in full armor now lined up to participate. Some folded dough with awkward claws, others carefully measured ingredients with precision uncommon for humans, and all of them learned one simple truth: cooking could be an adventure, and it could connect hearts. Ray watched, smiling quietly. You see, it's not just about bread. It's about sharing, patience, and pride in creation. Zahara, standing nearby, observed her people with a subtle smile. She had always been a commander first, and a leader second. But now she saw her crew learning to laugh together over flour dust and melted butter. Something about it moved her deeply. One young Clerian officer, silver blue like Zahara herself, accidentally dropped a rolling pin into a vat of dough. It splashed everywhere. Ray chuckled. Not a problem. Bread loves a little chaos now and then. The officer's face brightened with surprise. Laughter erupted in the hall. Even Zahara laughed lightly at the sight, the council's surprise. Then came the day of the High Council's inspection. They had been curious, but skeptical. Could human comfort food really change the moods of the fiercest warriors in the galaxy? The council gathered in the massive dining hall, a place usually reserved for formal reports and military orders. Ray stood in the center, surrounded by Clerian students who now moved confidently with dough in their hands. He held a golden brown baguette aloft. Today, you will taste not just bread, but a piece of humanity, a taste of home, hope, and heart. The council members leaned forward. The moment Ray sliced the first piece and handed it to the leading counselor, silence fell. The scent was incredible. Warmth filled the room. Warriors who usually carried stoic expressions now relaxed, breathing in the aroma with wonder. Some smiled for the first time in decades. This is extraordinary," the counselor whispered, tasting a piece. "It carries emotion." Zahara stood near Ray, watching the reactions of her people. For the first time in centuries, the council didn't debate strategy or punishment. They shared stories of childhood meals, family memories, and simple joys. Ray looked at Zahara. "Looks like your crew likes it." "They do more than like it," she said softly. "You have changed them, and perhaps even me." He smiled. "Good bread tends to do that." An unexpected problem. Just as everything seemed perfect, a sudden alarm rang across the flagship. Red lights flashed. "Hostile fleet detected," a voice called out. "They are approaching from the Andros sector." Zahara's expression hardened. "All stations report incoming warships. Prepare for battle." Ray froze. "Wait. Battle? I thought I was here to bake?" Zahara gave him a firm look. "This is the galaxy, Captain. Trouble finds you even in kitchens." The Clerian crew rushed to stations, but Ray noticed something remarkable. Even under stress, they moved with calm coordination. The laughter and connection from their baking sessions had not disappeared. In fact, it strengthened them. "Commander," Ray said quietly, "maybe there's a way to use, morale." She raised an eyebrow. "Explain." Ray pointed to the now famous baguettes, laid out for the council. "Food, energy, and emotion. It unites people. If we give your warriors bread before battle, they'll fight not just with strength, but with spirit." Zahara studied him. "You suggest morale baking?" Ray nodded seriously. "Yes, a quick batch before engagement. Comfort in a loaf." The commander blinked, then allowed herself a tiny smile. "You are unusual, human." The Battle of the Andros sector moments. Later, Clerian ships engaged the enemy. The battle was fierce, energy beams cutting through the darkness of space. But Ray had prepared. Trays of freshly baked bread were delivered to the crew in their stations. At first, warriors hesitated, unsure how to eat during combat. But as the smell hit them, the familiar warmth and taste calmed nerves, tension eased, movements became fluid, decisions sharper, hearts steadier. Zahara watched in amazement. Her warriors were fighting harder, but with less fear and more unity than she had ever seen. The battle ended in decisive victory. The enemy, fleet retreated, stunned by the coordination of the Clerians. Later, Zahara approached Rey as the flagship floated safely in orbit. "I cannot believe. Simple bread played a part in our victory." Rey shrugged modestly. "Never underestimate the power of comfort and heart." She nodded, thoughtful. "Your species truly is remarkable. Perhaps it is not only strength that conquers, but spirit. You have reminded us of that." Rey smiled. All it took was a 13-inch baguette. A new tradition in the weeks that followed, morale baking became a formal part of Clerian culture. Bread and pastries were baked daily aboard the Eclipsera and distributed to every crew member. Officers reported higher efficiency, cooperation, and even happiness among warriors. Zahara and Rey continued their lessons, creating new recipes adapted for Clerian tastes. Honey-glazed pastries, spiced loaves, and soft buns became common alongside traditional energy rations. Zahara often joined Rey at the baking station, observing quietly but learning quickly. She had grown fond of the process, and sometimes she even laughed at her own mistakes, a rare sight for her crew. The bond between human and Clerian grew stronger with each batch. Rey had taught them more than bread. He had taught patience, care, and the joy of simple things. A farewell. For now one evening, while the stars glimmered outside the ship's windows, Zahara approached Rey. She held a freshly baked baguette in her hands. "Captain Holden," she said softly, "you have given my people more than bread. You have given them hope. You have given me something I did not realize I needed." Rey smiled. "I only shared a little of Earth. Still," she said, her silver eyes reflecting starlight, "it is enough to change the galaxy." They shared a quiet moment, the hum of the engines around them. Rey knew it was time for him to consider his next adventure. "Commander," he said, "I have another stall waiting on a nearby station. Maybe more aliens will need some 13-inch comfort." Zahara nodded. "Then go. But remember, you will always have a place aboard the Eclipsera." Rey lifted his apron with a grin. "And I will always carry the smell of your people in my heart." She smiled, and for the first time it was a human-like smile, warm, gentle, and real. The legacy of the baguette as Rey left the Eclipsera. He glanced back one last time. The ship's massive silhouette glimmered in the starfield. Inside, Clerians baked, laughed, and shared stories. And even warriors paused to savor the simple joy of a golden loaf. Somewhere in the galaxy, a small piece of humanity had taken root, reminding even the fiercest alien species that strength was not only in weapons and strategy, but also in warmth, sharing, and courage. And all it took was a 13-inch baguette. Rey chuckled softly to himself as his shuttle drifted into the void. Not bad for a baker. Somewhere, Commander Zahara tasted another bite of bread, her thoughts drifting to the human who had shown her a new way to see the universe. A universe where even small acts could inspire greatness. And so humanity's legacy continued one loaf at a time.